Good evening, everyone, or good morning. Today we're going to run through our Emerald BI-GanttView. It's a new tool for us that we built over last year that pushes data into Power BI, and it's a Gantt chart viewer tool, and very flexible. So we're really excited to show it to you. I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm joining actually from Montreal today, and Amy Paul is doing the heavy lifting. She's in Calgary. So she's going to run through how you use the tool, and not so much on how to build a schedule, but she's going to show you how to actually use the BI-GanttView tool in Power BI. Okay, I'm going to switch it over to Amy.
All right, let's share my screen here. Okie dokie. So what we're looking at on our screens right now is an example of a Gantt chart that has been built using the Emerald BI-GanttView. So you can see that we have some milestones along the top here and some taskbars in the middle, and they're actually colored according to the responsible discipline as is listed on the chart to the left. But how do we build a chart like this? Let's take a look at that by starting with an empty chart here. So this chart has no data in it, and you can see that there are some panels along the right here, a filters panel, a visualizations panel, and a data panel. So the data section holds the data that we've pulled in from Primavera P6. So you can see that it's actually organized into task data, baseline data, project data, and filter snapshot data. So this filter snapshot data is actually being used by these slicers up here. We have one for the tasks, and we have one for the baselines. So by choosing your snapshots using these slicers, you can actually control which data you're going to be looking at in the chart you're building. So there's also the visualizations panel here. So this one is how we will be building our chart. Right now, you'll see that we're on the Build Visual tab here, and you'll see that there's actually a multitude of empty data fields here waiting to be filled in. So Power BI allows for the easy drag and drop of data into these data fields, which makes it really easy to make charts in just a matter of minutes. So to start, we're going to want to pull in some activity data. So you'll see that the section here labeled Task. If we open that up, we'll see all of our task data. And you'll see that there is a data field here named Task. So this is where we're going to get our information for our taskbars. So if I go into this data column and pull in task name, you'll see that within a few seconds, it's going to populate our chart with our task names. But because we don't have any duration information yet, they're just showing up as a bunch of dots on our chart. So let's fix that. You'll see there's a start date and an end date field here. So we're just going to pull in our end date information and our start date information. And you'll see that these taskbars are now being displayed on our chart. And so we now have the bare bones of our Gantt chart. So next up, we're going to want to pull in our baseline information. So this one works pretty much the same way. You'll see there's a baseline start date field and a baseline end date field. So I'm going to open up my task baseline information down here, and I'm going to pull in my end date and my start date. And you'll see that it immediately fills in our baseline information. So we can also add labels to our taskbars and our baseline bars. So we can do this by scrolling down a little bit further, and you'll see there's a label and a baseline label field here. So we can pull in any kind of data here to pick our label. For example, if I wanted to use a task name as my label, I'll pull that in, and you'll see that my taskbars are immediately labeled with the name for each of them. I can do the same with my baseline label. For example, I can pull in task ID. And you'll see that next to the baseline bars, you can now see the task ID for each of these baselines. Just above this field, you'll see there's a percent completion data field. So this one, we can pull in our percent completion information. And you'll see now that the bars are showing different fill levels. So you can now tell just at a glance which tasks have been completed, which ones are in progress, and which ones have not been started based on the level of fill. So this top one here has been finished. We have a couple here that have been started but not completed. And then these empty ones down here have yet to be started. So our chart is starting to take shape, but you might notice that our activity table along the left here is looking a little bit flat. So let's fix that by adding a WBS hierarchy. So if you scroll up to the top here again, you'll see there is a parent data field. So this is where we can choose how we want to create our hierarchy. You can use different types of criteria here, but we're going to demonstrate just a typical WBS hierarchy for this presentation. So I'm going to pull up our project, and our first level is going to be the project name. And you'll see that creates our highest level of the hierarchy there. And then next up, I'm going to pull in our WBS name, level 1, and our WBS name, level 2. And you'll see that this really easily and quickly builds out our hierarchy and adjusts the bars accordingly. You can also change the way that each of these levels are sorted. So this can be controlled further down the list if I scroll down here to parent sort order. So to sort the different layers, you're going to want to pull in data in the same order as your hierarchy levels in the parent field. So for example, if you remember, our first level here was the project name. So the first thing we pull in is going to sort our project name. So if we're looking at multiple projects at once that we would like to sort, for example, we could pull in project name to sort them alphabetically. Next, if we want to sort the first WBS level, let's again sort it alphabetically and pull in WBS name 1. And we'll do the same with the third level with WBS name level 2. So these are all being sorted alphabetically now, and we can actually do the same thing with our tasks. So these ones here. And I will just pull in task name. And you can see that our tasks are now being sorted alphabetically as well. You can also add custom date lines in this data field down here, similar to how you would see in Primavera P6. So if, for example, I'll pull in my data date, and you'll see we get a vertical line here denoting our data date. So going back up to the top of the list here, we have another data field that we have yet to fill in. This one is called Is Task Critical? So this one will tell Power BI which of our tasks are critical using our P6 data. So I'm going to pull in our critical information here. And now you won't see anything change immediately, but that will change once we start looking at the customization section. But just before we get to that bit, we have a couple more things to do to finish building our chart. So scrolling back down, you'll see there is an extra field section here. So this will add columns to our activity table along the left, depending on the data added. So we can see important activity data at a glance. So I'm going to add 2 extra columns, original duration and responsible discipline. And you'll see that as I add them, they get added to our left activity table here. And you can add more or less as needed, but for now, I'll just add these 2. And then we do also have a tooltips section here. So this one allows us to add information that will appear in a little dialog box whenever you hover over a task. So for example, if I pull in task ID and then hover over one of these tasks, you'll see that in this little dialog box, it tells us the task ID of the task we're hovering over. And then last but not least, for building out our chart, we do have these 2 milestone data fields. So the data in the milestones field will determine whether we put milestones in the chart or not. The data in the key milestone field will determine whether the milestones will be displayed along the timeline instead of within the chart. So if I pull in milestone type to our milestones field and then scroll down, you'll see that it has added milestones into our chart here. And you can scroll along and see them all laid out here. However, if I wanted to see them along the top timeline, I would pull in key milestones into our key milestones section, and you'll see that now they have appeared along the top timeline. And you can scroll along and look at them there, and they are no longer within our chart. And these milestones can all be customized. So speaking of customization, we've now built the majority of our chart, but it is looking a little bit plain. So let's start customizing some of what we've created so far. So we can do this by moving over here to Format Visual. And you'll see that there is a lot of tabs here, similar to what it looked like in the build visual. So when we look at these tabs, first thing we want to do is we want to fix up our activity table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up category labels. And this is where we can adjust the font size, the font family, and the font color of our table here. I'm liking the size as it is right now and the font and the color. So all I'm going to do is just bold it here, make it stand out just a little bit more. And then we're going to move down to our hierarchy settings, this guy here, which allows us to control customization for each level of the hierarchy that we've built. So here we can adjust the taskbar colors for each level. Importantly, this adjusts the parent bars, not the taskbars themselves. Those are adjusted elsewhere. So right now we don't have any parent bars displayed on our graph, but we can change this by going back up here to this general section and clicking on Show Parent Bars. And then you'll see these blue bars here are our parent bars, and those are what we can customize in the hierarchy levels. But for now, we're going to keep these off, but I did just want to show them to you so you can see that they're there and they can be customized. So going back down to the hierarchy settings, the other thing we can do here is adjust the actual activity table colors for each hierarchy level. So I'm going to adjust them to reflect our company colors right now. So I'm going to set level 1 text color to white and the level 1 background color to black. Level 2 text color I'm going to leave as black and have the background color a nice light gray. Level 3 text color I'm going to put to white, and then I'm going to set our background color to emerald green. And you'll see really nice and easy, we now have our activity table customized to fit our company. You can also adjust these extra columns individually if you want. That one can be done in this extra field section here, but for now, we're just going to leave that one be. So the colors are looking better. Our activity bars could still use some work though. So we're going to move over into our task settings here. So the first thing you might see here is the critical task color option. So this is where we can decide what color we want our critical tasks to be. So right now, our critical task, the one we have, is right here, but it looks exactly the same as all the others. So if we want to be able to identify it just by looking at it in this chart, we'll just click this guy open and change it to red. So now this critical task and any other critical tasks will be identified as red, making them stand out and very easy to identify. We can also change the taskbar color here if we so wished. I'm going to leave it as a nice emerald green for now. And the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change our baseline outline color to match the yellow fill. And I'm going to set the baseline height to 0.1 just to give us a little bit more space in our chart here. So now you might remember in that first chart that I showed you, we had all of our taskbars colored according to responsible discipline. So let's show you how that's done. So we're going to move back into our build visual section and scroll on down to task category. So here we can group by different types of data depending on our needs, but I'm going to be using responsible discipline like in our example. So you'll see that as soon as I pull it in, we have all of our taskbars changing colors according to the identified responsible discipline. So for example, we have civil is blue, civil is orange, fabrication is blue, etc. And if we go back into our format visual, you can see that we now have an extra section here called task category settings. So this has been added because we now are using task categorization. So if we open this guy up, we can adjust the different colors for each section, and we can change them according to what we want them to look like. Now, one thing to note is that over here, our critical taskbar is still colored red. So that's because the critical color overrides the task category color. So if you just want to use task category colors, you will have to go here and remove critical from the chart. And then you'll see here that it is now colored according to the responsible discipline. Another way to control the look of our taskbars is by using a legend. So if I scroll down here, I'm going to remove our responsible discipline task category and go back up to this legend task category. So this data field creates a legend based off of the data that you've pulled in. So for example, if I were to pull in task name here, you'll see that now we have a legend according to each task name, and each of these taskbars are colored according to their task name. So once again, if we go over into Format Visual, you'll see there's now a new section for Legend. And here we can adjust the position of our legend. We can have it along the bottom or along the top. And we can adjust the text as well as the color of each of our bars. So next up, you might notice that our baseline label here is looking a little bit small and hard to read. So let's take a look at adjusting our labels. So that would be in our data labels here. So if we open this guy up, we can adjust the font color and the baseline color, as well as the font families and the font sizes and the location and the padding of each. So I'm going to make my baseline font size a little bit bigger, just make it a bit easier to read. And if I wanted to, I can adjust the position of our labels. So I can put this one, for example, inside of our bars. I can adjust if I want them left, right, or in the middle. And I can also do the same with the baseline taskbars. I can adjust them to be on the left or the right of the taskbar. The baseline labels on the left or right of the taskbar. So last main thing we wanted to look at, or second last, is our milestones. So at the moment, our milestones are looking pretty small at the top here, and they're all looking the same. So if we go back up here to our milestones section, we can adjust the font style, size, and color, as well as the shape and color of each individual milestone, including baseline milestones. So let's take a look at these ones here. I'm going to adjust the text size to be a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to read. And I can adjust the text color if I want, but I'll leave that as a black. And I can adjust the fill. So for example, I can make it blue and make the outline blue as well. I can adjust the shape as well. For example, I can make it into a circle. And I'm going to bold this text just so we know this one is for the tasks, while the other is for the baselines. And again, I can do the same for the baseline. I can make it bigger, and I can adjust the baseline fill and the baseline outline, as well as the shape. And this can be done for each of your milestones and your baseline milestones individually. So last but not least, we do want to look at adjusting our timeline here, as it is looking a little bit plain. So if we scroll back up to the top here, you'll see a timeline section. So here we get a couple options. First off, if we wanted, we could pin this to the top of the screen so it doesn't follow us down every time we scroll. We can also adjust the text color, the background color, and the time scale of each of these 3 layers here. So let's make this timeline look a little bit more Emerald Associates-like. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our middle text color to white and our bottom text color to white. We're going to leave our top background color as a nice light gray, and our middle background color black, and our bottom background color we're going to set as emerald green. So now we have this looking a little bit more like our company, a little bit more in line with our colors. And if we wanted to, we can also adjust the scale. So for example, I can set the middle time scale to quarterly, and maybe the bottom time scale I can set to monthly. So you can see really nice and easy, it just adjusts as you change your preferences along the side here. So there are numerous other little changes that we can make that we won't go over in detail here, such as the ability to change the look of your custom dateline and other adjustments. But overall, this is a highly configurable tool, which allows you to make Gantt charts that meet your organization's needs. So the last thing we're going to do is change the title, as this one is a little bit of a mouthful. So we'll scroll back up to the top here, move over to General, and then here we can rename our Gantt chart. So I'm just going to name this Initial Snapshot of Civil Project. And you'll see, if I can spell that right. There we go. And you'll see it adjusts as I type. And one more thing, so in this chart, we've only shown one project at a time, but you are able to display multiple projects in one Gantt chart, as well as multiple snapshots of the same project. So I hope you guys liked what you saw, and if there aren't any questions, I'm going to hand this one back to Nicole for the end of our presentation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy.
For sure.
Okay, well, that gave you an overview of how easy it is to work with the tool. The data, getting it into Power BI, I mean, we use our P6 reporter to do that, but you can use many different methods, Excel or other methods that you might use. You could export. The benefit of the reporter tool is it's automated, so you can have it automatically moving in and updating. Okay, so that takes some of the manual work away. Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us. We have some other upcoming mini webinars, so these half an hour or less formats, so you can just take a little bit of break out of your day and jump in to learn something new. So our next ones coming up this week are on the OPC cloud. And then Amy's going to do this one again, but for the a different time zone. And then we've got more on Unifier coming up. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Let me just see if there's anything else. And no, so I think I'll stop the recording there.